folks, welcome you all to yet another cheap little vlog of mine on the iPhone 14, people. This is becoming a bit of a habit, right? I used to do really posh ones with big Rode microphones and loads of video clips and all sorts of stuff. And the reason that this keeps happening is because the weather's just bloody gorgeous again, and I want to sit in this little chill out room, which has got the big garden, my little garden. But the big doors to my little garden just behind this camera. So I can look out, get a little breeze coming through, and Anyway, you guys haven't said that the mic volume in these headphones is poor or anything like that. And listening to it back, the only thing that I noticed was that sometimes it can be a little bit quieter. Like the intro music it was a bit, I think in the first one I did couple back when I did one of these, I noticed that the volume on the headset microphone wasn't quite as loud as sort of the intro music, if you like. So the last one I did, I increased the decibels on the microphone, so it should have been more level, which is cool. But apart from that, it sounds really crystal clear to me. Obviously, it's not going to be quite as crisp as the I'm forgetting what it is, Rode microphone, people, which is what I use for doing all the Let's Plays and all, and normally for what I would do like a proper vlog or podcast with. But I think when I do the vlogs with the Rode microphone anyway, because I have it high sensitivity and away from me, I think that's probably why there isn't a huge difference between this and using the Rode microphone. But when I do the Let's Plays or the podcasts have kind of gone by the wayside, I just sort of stick to the vlogs now. But the Let's Plays, when I do those, the microphone's on a lower sensitivity and closer to my mouth when I'm recording, and you get a much crisper, richer sound from it. But it's just super nice to be able to just throw up the selfie stand, stick the camera on, and just get into this room and just and chill out here with one of these people. Flagons up to you all, people. It is, in fact, Flagons Up Friday. I'm going to have a sip of this before we get going. It is ice cold. It's not long poured, that, people. It's gorgeous. So I don't think we did one of these last week. I think it was a couple of weeks back that we did one of these. We will talk about little bits of news and everything, and you'll have seen whatever I've picked out on the thumbnail for the title to be the main topic of conversation, which I probably haven't really picked out of the list yet. But I've got, as I always do, I tend to pick up stories from IGN or just general Twitter feeds and and other such places where you can get news of what's going on in the world. I did actually join because the Instagram or Facebook, but Instagram version of Twitter came out yesterday and went live. And I think they've had 50 million people sign up to it already. And that's how sick of Twitter people are. And Elon Musk, that man, good grief. So, and not that Zuckerberg's much better, I don't suppose, but he certainly seems to know how not to dick about with his product, I guess, and make it worse for people rather than trying to make it better. So it doesn't, I've used it for one evening, and there are a couple of tiny features that aren't there at the moment, but I'm sure I'll add them as they go forward. But in general terms, it felt like I was just using a version of Twitter. It was a bit like the Spoutable one that I joined, but the Spoutable one has got an Android app, but it doesn't have an iOS app yet. It's supposed to be coming in the coming weeks. So I'll probably get back to trying out Spoutable as well, because out of all of them, I think Spoutable will be the lesser of all the evils, because it is meant to be away from these big giant companies, and someone's set this up as a new individual little company with loads of protection, security, and trying to get rid of all that abuse stuff that happens. So I'm quite looking for. I'd like Spoutable to really take off, but it's just too painful to use as a website on your phone. Like they need the app for the iOS, and it's a bit of a shame that they never got it sorted before Threads came out, because I feel like they've missed the boat a bit. So many people are now signing up to Threads that they'll think, well, what's the point of me doing a Spoutable account now? You know what I mean? So it's a bit of a shame, because it is actually quite good, Spoutable. It's, again, very similar to Twitter. But anyway, we'll see what comes of it when the app drops. But anyway, I pick up bits of news from here and there, people, and we're just going to go through it randomly. We will sort of chat globally about what fell out the arse of the FTC thing. We did talk about it a little bit in the last vlog I did, I think. But I think in general terms, we'll just have a little chat about what I took from it, really, more than anything else, rather than anything too specific. And then we've got the subjects to go through. Now, just a very brief what's going on with the channel, like we always do. Once again, I will try and put the time codes down below just about when I get to. I tend not to do like mini segments on the ones that I don't show video clips for, but I will try and put at least a time code in for when I start talking about the subject matters in hand. I might do. I might break it down a bit more. We'll see how far we get, people. But anyway, if you don't like me spraffing on at the beginning, then you'll at least be able to get to the point where I actually start talking about the news that I was going to talk about. But channel-wise, we have not done anything for the last 2 weeks, so we're still sitting on Diablo 4 Let's Play part 20, I think, was the last one that I threw up. And I actually sat down to play it midweek, and I put everything out, I was ready to go, and I just couldn't be bothered. It's just been, I think mainly I've not done a lot of gaming because the weather's been really nice, but it did go a bit wintry last week, so I could have done some. But I have to say that I keep really, like, I feel like I'm trying to love Diablo 4, and it's just not happening. Like, I'm enjoying elements of it, but I'm just not finding that it's gripping me the way that these sort of games normally do. If I think about how Wolcen gripped me in for that full playthrough of the main story, I was totally hooked on playing it. When I think about Grim Dawn, I was totally hooked on playing that game and saw that all the way through. And this, for some reason, and I remember being pretty addicted to Diablo 3 as well, but this is just not holding my interest as high as these other games have, and I can't quite put my finger on it as to why. I mean, there are little things that I think, well, there just isn't enough interest happening as I'm running around. Like in a lot of these games, every 2 minutes you're picking something up, or it reads story to you, or it reads lore, or something's reading to you. And I think because it's gone into the open world environment, it's kind of lost a little bit of something for me. I feel like I was happier having Environment A, Environment B, Environment C, and so on and so forth, and not having the big open world area. And I kind of get why they've done it, and I get that they've put that MMO kind of bit into it, where you can join in big fights with people and you can get loads of loot and all that sort of stuff, but I'm not interested in all that sort of stuff. So I really want a game that's going to keep me hooked campaign-wise, give me a reason to replay it, or give me a reason to play it on a harder mode, to get better loot, to get better drops and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not finding that world interesting enough to keep running around those areas. I mean, at the moment, I've had a rainy area and a snow area, I think, are the two that I've had. I'm sure there's, maybe a sunny area or whatever later on, but I'm just not finding it capturing me the way that the others did. And I feel like I'm the only person because everyone else is saying how amazing it is. The gameplay's great, and the fight, but there's even little things missing in the gameplay, like just about every one of these games that I've played will let you hide the smaller items that you don't want to pick up anymore when you get sort of too uber for them. So you can filter out the white items, or you can filter out the blue items, and you can even filter out the yellows if you want to. And you can start cutting down what's on the floor, so that it's just not all littered about the place. But there isn't any sort of such mechanism to do that in the game. Not being able to play it offline is a little bit frustrating as well, so you have to be logged in all the time. I mean, it's all just a little bit not quite grabbing me, and I think it's because they've gone down the MMO route. But even Path of Exile kept me hooked for such a long time, and I think it's because the environments were constantly changing, like quite dramatically, to the point where I was always like, "Oh, this is really nice, this area." It was always kind of something keeping my interest going for a huge amount of time. I mean, Path of Exile had its other issues, like, loads of drops, and not, you always look a bit shit unless you're prepared to spend money. But that's because it's a free-to-play game. But I played Path of Exile over 2 consoles for a huge amount of time. But this just isn't grabbing me, and I'm failing to... I'm getting little things are kind of frustrating me, but it's just not pulling me back in. And it's a bit frustrating because I was really, really looking forward to the game. So, I don't know, maybe I'll get a bit of a boost for it at some point and do some more episodes for you, because it is actually, the views on the last episode were really good for my little channel, and that's what was pushing me to try and record the other day. But it's a mixture of that and the fact that the weather's been hot and warm, and it kind of doesn't really lend itself to me wanting to play games. But But we'll see where we go. I haven't got any immediate plans to do Let's Play recording other than getting back to Diablo 4 and doing some more episodes for you, because clearly people were enjoying it. And the subscribers went up as I started playing it. So I don't want to start losing people because they think I got lazy with it. It's certainly not laziness. It's just a combination of the fact that I'm struggling to understand why it's not hooking me the way that I expected it to, like Wilson and Grim Dawn did. So I'm kind of, I'm a little bit sort of frustrated about it. But anyway, it's in combo with that and the fact that the weather's been nicer and stickier and warmer and stuff. So we'll see where we get to next week. Hopefully I'll get a bit of a buzz to at least sit down and play something. I haven't played any games whatsoever for about 2 weeks. Well, about a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. Whenever I posted that last episode of Diablo 4 was posted up, that's the last time I played a game, basically. So, I mean, I was literally like, I had it all started up and everything. I was standing. I even went to the shop and dumped some stuff and I was ready to go. And I just was like, I went, potted about, came back and was like, I really don't want to do this. I just did not feel like doing it. And the problem with that is that if I force myself to record it, it doesn't come across like I'm enjoying it, which means you guys probably won't enjoy me playing it as much. So we'll see. We'll see what happens next week. I am also, the week after next week, I'm on holiday again. So I will be able to. I'm not going anywhere. So not planned to as yet anyway. So I'm probably just going to be around the house again, doing my running, and if the weather's nice, a bit of sunbathing and stuff like that. So I won't be up to much. So if I get the opportunity at that point, then I will have time at that point to do some recording, and that might, if I don't do any this week coming, then certainly I'll do some. Probably do some gaming at that point. Faux show, people, faux show. Should we get on to some news then, people, now that we're 12 minutes in? I'm going to say flaggins up to you all once again. You know I'd share it if I could, people. I'm that kind of guy. There's a fly in here and it's fucking annoying me. You'll probably hear it buzzing around. Well, maybe not. This might thing out, but you might see it. It's fine because I've got the kitchen. Well, I'm in the kitchen chill out bit. So this is normally this bit. I mean, most people would make this a dining room. But on the other side of me is the kitchen and the garden's there. And, so it's one big open bit, or one small open bit. But, there's enough room for a dining room table and chairs here. But as I live by myself, people, there was no point having a dining room table and chairs. So I've got like a sofa and my guitars and music and all sorts around me. So, so my little chill bit, people. Right, let's get on to some game stuffs. Right, I've got my glasses all ready as well because we've got the iPad just down here, people, with me notes on it. So what did I have, people? What did I have? So I mean, I'm going to maybe leave the FTC bit till the end. So I'll maybe jump around this a little bit. So Xbox seriously considered acquiring blah. So we'll leave that for a minute. So here's one. So Alan Wake 2, which we knew a number of weeks back was digital only all of a sudden. And this fell out the arse of one of the showcases where they showed off Alan Wake 2 and everyone was buzzing for it. It looks fantastic. And then after the event, they said, oh yeah, it's only going to be digital. But I can't remember if they actually gave a reason for it at the time, but I don't think they did. And anyway, it came out, the sort of slithered out a little bit that part of the reason they're not going to give out a digital copy is because they wanted more time to polish the game up. And in order to do that, it means that the complete version wouldn't have been on the disc, which it's like, well, plenty of other studios are giving out physical copies of games that immediately update when you put them in. So you could still have given us a digital copy. But they did say after it that it would have to have gone on 2 discs, which is like, well, why is that a problem? We did that back in the day. In fact, The Last of Us, I think I might have mentioned this in another vlog, but The Last of Us Part 2 came on 2 discs. You had an install disc and a play disc, which is how they managed to get around any sort of space issues, I guess. So there's plenty of ways you can do it. It's just, you've got to just, it just comes across as you can't be asked. It's like, most people have gone digital now and let's just do it digital. We can't be bloody asked with doing 2 discs and finding a publisher to push it out on disc. And I think 2K or someone offered to do it for them, whoever it was that pushed out the remaster or something, I think. But it really winds me up, stuff like that, because it's kind of like, that's not you thinking about the gamers. That's you just thinking about yourself. And really what you should be doing is say, even if, right, I could understand it if they said that, well, maybe I couldn't actually. I was going to say maybe release a disc version later, but that would be a bit of a piss take on people that only wanted a physical copy in the first place. But I feel like we are not in a position yet where people want physical games to go away, because the infrastructure just isn't around the world for everybody to do that. And there's so many people that still rely on a disc. And I've talked about this before many times or certainly several times on the channel, where I think there was a Call of Duty came out, and literally the disc, all it had on it was download code. So there was nothing on the disc, and that is shocking. And they did the same with Halo Infinite. They only put the multiplayer on the disc. And there was a story of a guy who drove 4 hours in America to get a physical copy because he was so excited about getting Halo, and he had shit internet connection. He just wanted to have the game on the disc. Got home and then found that there was no campaign on the disc. So he had to sit and wait for it to download. God knows how long he had to wait for it. I can't remember what the story said, but it's just not on. Like, if you're going to push a physical copy out, the game has to be on the disc. I understand with MMOs, right? I get it. I understand that they're an ever-changing animal, and I understand that. I remember, like, when Destiny, all of the Destinies have been released on disc, as far as I know and remember, the main ones anyway. But even like the Taken King, you could get it on disc, but all you got on the disc was Destiny. You didn't get Taken King on the disc. It was a Destiny game with the download code that, well, immediately downloaded the Taken King when you put it in, I think, or there was a code to do it. But at least you were getting the core game on there. But I mean, I think Taken King was probably bigger than the actual core game anyway. But I kind of get it. I'll kind of leave MMOs to one side. But everything else, you should, if there was a campaign in that game, that campaign should be on that disc. And I'm surprised that there's not been some hoo-ha about it from the omnisbans or whoever it is you go to, the trading people, to say that that's not right. If you're going to, you must put the game on the disc, and it must be playable on the disc. I mean, if I was not connected to the internet and I put that disc in, that game should be able to play. Okay, it might have some bugs on it, and I'll have to live with that. But that's just the way of the world these days. But it should be a copy of the game that has gone gold as far as they're concerned, which means that's a playable game. Whether or not, loads of bug fixes can come later, that's fine. But it must be a game that doesn't fundamentally break. It must play from beginning to end. But, well, for me, I mean, that should just be law. It shouldn't be something that, if you pay 70 bloody quid for these games, people, £70. It's ridiculous now, you know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't be, like, palming off. If you're going to say that you want £70, $70, whatever it is, whatever country you're in, then you should absolutely be thinking about what is best for the gamer, not for you. Like, I understand you've got, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there has to be a disc copy and there has to be a digital copy at the moment. The world may change when we've all got 1,000 gigabyte bloody download straight to the router in our houses. But at the moment, none of us have got that. I mean, I've got good broadband, but a full game, like 100 gig game, it'll take it about 3.5 hours, I think, or thereabouts, to download that sort of size of game. And that's fine, I can live with that, but I don't want to be forced to have to do it. I'd rather have, I'm still a person that likes discs, depending on the game. And I knew that Diablo 4 was kind of Diablo 4 was a bit of a sort of half MMO, so I was kind of expecting to do it digitally anyway, and it sort of happened by nature because you could only get it 4 days early if you bought one of the digital versions. You couldn't get the disc version early, so that kind of fell that way. And there are other games like Grim Dawn that is, as far as I know, only available digitally and stuff like that, and that's fine. But I think when you're talking about AAA games and AAA studios, you fundamentally have to be given as discs still. I mean, indie games are different. And even games that I've sort of ported over for PC, I can kind of forgive those a little bit as well. But when you are talking about fundamentally games that are written for the console audience, then we absolutely should be getting the option to buy a game, especially a AAA title like Alan Wake, without any shadow of a doubt. There's no reason they can't give us that on 2 discs in a box. Like, there's no reason other than they can't be bothered. So be bothered and give us a disc version. That's all I'm saying. Are you listening, Sam Lake? I love you, Sam Lake, by the way. I'm not trying to be horrible. I'm just like, it's my personal opinion that you should make the effort and you should give us the option to buy them. I love my discs, people. You know what I mean? I mean, I think I said wrongly that the digital sales. Well, actually, that might not have been wrongly. I think digital sales for a period of time were like 90-10, based on most people buying digital. But I think the figure I heard recently is it's like 60-40 or something like that on the 60% being digital and 40% being physical. So there's still a huge amount of of people wanting to buy physical games. You can't ignore them. I mean, don't ignore your customer base. Might put people off. Might go, I might wait and see if they do a disc version later or something. But anyway, it is what it is, and we'll see. Hopefully, I'm hoping that at some point they might go, oh, well, I mean, the thing is, the more time goes on, the less time they've got to sort discs out. So I can't see it happening now, but you never know. Maybe. Or maybe in the future they might release a disc version, perhaps, but it's just a bit of a shame. I'd love to have had Alan Wake 2 as part of my PS5 or Xbox. So if I was buying it, I would have bought it for PS5. If I could have got it physically, because I still don't know mind you, I think it's a new gen only game, isn't it? So it wouldn't have mattered with Xbox. So Xbox would have to have had, they would have to have had the game on the disc that is the Series X version. Whereas earlier on, if they were doing a crossover, you only got the Xbox One version on the disc, and that just triggered a download, which was, it was pointless. You might as well have bought it digitally. So that's why I normally went with the PS5 versions if I was buying physically. Anyway, it is what it is, but it's not good enough as far as I'm concerned, people. That's also to do with the FTC thing. We'll come back to that maybe. Now here's something I'm really excited about, which is hang on, what was this? Ninja console similar in power to... Oh, right, okay, yes. That actually... Okay, we'll come back to what I was about to say I'm really excited about. But this is also exciting, people, because it did leak out as part of the FTC thing, but I'll tap into this bit. That the next Nintendo, and I can't remember... Oh, it was the guy from Activision, I'm pretty sure, was the one that sort of accidentally said what was going on with it. But he came out basically and said that the next Nintendo console, so they must already have some sort of... dev kits out there, I assume, or he's been told by someone at Nintendo that the next Nintendo console, which we can probably assume is going to be a handheld of some description without any doubt, because they do so well off of that, it'd be daft not to, and they'd be daft to put this level of console out that wasn't a handheld really. But for a handheld, it's great. So it's the same power as the PS4 and the Xbox One, right? So you're still talking about a generation old, effectively. But for a handhold, that's pretty impressive stuff. If you consider that The Last of Us Part 2 was actually a PS4 title, then that is super impressive. But what it does tell me is that you're not going to be getting 60 FPS games on the next Nintendo console, which is a bit disappointing. However, after my last vlog and my rant about the fact that 60 FPS games or modes, 60 FPS modes of games seem to be becoming a bit sticky issue. We'll see what happens with all the consoles, but that was again the one thing that had put me off playing Nintendo games, is that I'm only ever going to get to play them at 30 FPS. So maybe the ones that they make in house might be able to play at 60. But I can't see anything ported over being able to do 60 FPS. But that is pretty... Yeah, it was. I've got a note there. It was Bobby Kotick of Activision Blizzard who came out with that. So anyway, I think that's... I'm not sure if it's something that Nintendo didn't want people to know, but certainly I think they would rather have announced it when they're ready to announce it. But the level of game that you will get on a handheld device at that power, I mean, if you think about what the sort of later games were like on the PS4 and the Xbox One, pretty impressive. Well, certainly the Xbox One S was a bit better than the original one. But even then, I mean, the quality of games coming out by the end of those gens was just outstanding, you know. But again, you'd have to just be used to 30 FPS though, which is kind Can't be doing with it, people. So there you are, exciting. Yeah, we'll see what comes of it. I mean, you've got to fancy that they're going to be announcing that sooner rather than later, whatever that console is. I mean, you've got to fancy. I mean, I would have seriously fancied that for this coming holiday season, without any shadow of a doubt. But I don't think they've actually come out and said anything official. Certainly, yeah, we'd know all about it if they had. But I would have been fancying them to be pushing that product for this coming Christmas, because we're 3 years away now from when the PS5 and the Series XS came out. So there's no new console coming. Well, there might be slim version coming for. Actually, there is. Again, the FTC thing came out, pretty much leaked the fact that there probably is going to be there is going to be a slim version of the PS5 coming sooner rather than later, which will be interesting to see. There's not much point of me buying it, I don't think. I mean, if it's not going to do anything the other one didn't, I'd certainly be interested in a Pro. Xbox came out and said they're not doing one, but we talked about that in the last vlog, I think, so I won't go back into it again. But a Slim is a great idea, but Nintendo, if they come out with a whole new console before Christmas, it's just going to sell like becking hotcakes, isn't it? Everybody that owns a Switch is going to be interested in whatever the new Switch, or it's certainly, they'll have a new name for it, I'm sure. Or they might not. The Switch has been so super successful, they might go with Switch something. But, I mean, they did it with Wii. They did Wii and Wii U. So it could be Switch and Switch U, or or something of a similar ilk, people. But we'll see what comes of it. It's super exciting anyway. So we'll see. We'll see if we hear anything at the tail end of this year, people. So, yes, here's what I was super excited about. I'm going to sip of my drink, people, before I go any further. Yes, I am. Cheers. Oh, that's still ice cold. It's superb. Baldurs Gate 3, people, which I think we might have talked about in the last vlog, but I'm not sure. But Baldurs Gate 3, we have an official date. It's coming to the PlayStation 5 September 6th with 60 FPS mode. And that just fills me with joy in every possible area of my body, people. Thank you. It makes me tingle all over. We've got, 60 FPS. Tick, giant tick. September, giant tick. The only downside is that it's only coming to PS5 and PC, obviously, because, and I think we might have talked about this in the last vlog a little bit, because we kind of knew about it a little while ago, but there's an issue with the Xbox Series S being able to do the split screen mode in the game. The X version is fine and it's ready to go, but the S version is having issues with it. So apparently Microsoft engineers are now in that studio helping them overcome those problems to make it work on the S. And unfortunately, Microsoft have got rules in place that say you cannot launch a game on the Xbox platform unless it works with all features for S and X. You can't have some of the features on X and some of the features on S. You've got to launch them with the same features, which is a bit of a shit show, really, because you could have launched the Series S version without the split screen mode, in theory, and then made it a downloadable thing. Once you fixed it, you could have made it a downloadable. But the Series X players could have got it with that split, because I won't use that split screen on couch co-op anyway. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if they maybe revisit those rules. But I think the reason they don't want to do that is because they don't want to publicly make people aware that there is some kind of issue with the S, because they always punt the S as this super powerful, cheap option. And that they are going to support it for the entire duration of this generation of console along with the X. So I kind of understand from their perspective as to why they don't want that mindset entering people's heads about there being some issue with it. But I think when this sort of stuff happens, it does kind of flag it up anyway. But it could just be in-house knowledge, though. But it sounds to me, if they've got it to work on a PS5 and an Xbox Series X without any issues, that it's more likely a fact that they're just struggling with the hardware that's in there. I mean, they're a developer that's been around for ages. They're not a huge developer, though. They're not technically a AAA studio and what have you, but it's Larian Studios who did the Divinity Original Sin and what have you. If you don't know what Baldur's Gate is, it is basically the original sort of Dungeons and Dragons sort of PC/console, well, don't know if it was on console. I think you can get it on console now. But it was kind of the original Dungeons and Dragons sort of computer version of the game from way, way, way back in the day. And Larian Studios approached the guy who wrote it and made the originals and owns the license to it. And they asked him if they could make a Baldur's Gate 3 after all these years of no Baldur's Gate. And sort of spun the idea toward him, and he said absolutely, and he was well behind it and everything, and that's where this has all stemmed from. So I'm super looking forward to it. I'm expecting what Divinity gave us and so much more. So I'm really, really excited for Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm super excited that we're getting it on the 6th of September. A little bit disappointing that we can't get it for the Xbox Series X and S at that point, but it will come. It will. They're saying it definitely will come. It's just not going to be ready in time for that launch date. So I will absolutely be buying that on the PlayStation 5, and their other games came on disc, so I will probably buy it on disc as well. So yeah, super excited for that. There is a Assassin's Creed, right? Here's I actually love this news. Assuming that they don't dick around with it too much. But Assassin's Creed Black Flag is officially being remade, people. Or at least I think it's official. Oh no, it's not. It was kind of a leak, I think. It was a leak from Kotaku. Now, I've often wondered why that game never got patched with a 60 FPS patch and everything, when a lot of the other games got remasters and they got sort of updates to run at 60 FPS and stuff, but that one didn't, which was really frustrating because I still own it on the PS4 and I really wanted to play it again, but I just couldn't be arsed at 30 FPS. So I think part of the reason maybe there's been a long-term plan always to actually bring or do a remake of Assassin's Creed Black Flag. So I'm more than happy with that. If you're going to give us because if you're going to give us a super shiny version of that game made from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5 or whatever your new engine is, I'm absolutely going to be buying the hell out of that. Because it's probably, I think, the thing that made Assassin's Creed Black Flag so much fun for me was the whole pirate life that was in it. Sailing the ships, fighting in the ships, the songs that were sang when you were sailing around the oceans, all that stuff was just superb. You know, it was just brilliant, a really good game. I mean, it still had some of the frustrations of all the other Assassin's Creed games, like, you know, following people and not being spotted, or missions and, you know, little things, odds and ends. But as a game, it was really, really good. So I will take that all day long if they're doing a remake on that. In fact, shall we read the whole article on that one? I'm going to put my glasses on, people, so I can see what I do. I'm old. Oh, I'm old. Yes, accept the cookies. Why not? Oh, crikey. A massive advert popped up and I can't see the story. Here we go. Sources. Assassin's Creed publisher remaking Black Flag. The pirate one. This is from Kotaku. Ubisoft is doubling down on its most popular franchise, including Assassin's Creed. Kotaku has learned that strategy now includes a remake of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, the 18th century pirate fantasy period piece, and one of the more fondly remembered entries in the series. It's what many fans have asked for every time they see the new trailer for Skull and Bones, which just I'm so worried for that game. It's ridiculous. Ubisoft's other pirate game, long trapped in development hell. According to two sources familiar with the plans who asked not to be named because they were not authorised to discuss them, a remake of the 2013 cross-gen PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 game is still in its earliest stages and will not be complete for at least a few years. A team at Ubisoft Singapore, one of the studios that has led development on Assassin's Creed's franchise's evolving ocean tech, will be heavily involved in helping to modernise the Caribbean-based sailing game. A spokesperson for Ubisoft declined to comment. At this stage, it's not yet clear how much of the underlying gameplay and systems will grow to fit the more sprawling open-world RPG mould of recent big-budget Assassin's Creeds like Odyssey and Valhalla, but given Black Flag's emphasis on ship-to-ship combat, one of the most popular aspects of the game, there's a lot of room to turn a new version of the game into something more dramatic than a simple next-gen remaster on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS. At the same time, Ubisoft is still yet to launch Skull and Bones, its cursed blockbuster. Yeah, okay. So there you go. So, I mean, it's... Oh, hello. I now need to figure out how to get back to my aisle. Here we go. How do you work the iPad, people? Right, here we go. So yeah, I mean, I'm really, really excited for that. I mean, I mean, a few years away is great, which means we're going to get it well into this cycle of gen of console, which means they should be well familiar with all the hardware and what they're capable of doing now. Take these off for a minute. Which means that the later you go in the cycle of gen of consoles, generally speaking, we get much, much better games because they get really used to the hardware that they're working with. So I'm really happy with that, and I'm more than happy to wait a few years for it to come out as well. But just to know that it's on the horizon is superb. So that leaves us with sort of the odd Xbox things here and there, which we could tap into. I mean, the FTC thing, basically the whole... okay, so let's just jump through the stories that I kind of picked out, which isn't by any means the later ones that came out, because I was jotting these down quite early on. But Xbox seriously considered acquiring Sega, Bungie, IO, and loads of others to fill content gaps. Was one of the stories that I picked up on. Microsoft considering buying Final Fantasy makes Square Enix to try and get into that Japanese side of the market. I mean, there was just the odds and ends that kind of fell out the arse of that FTC trial was just ridiculous. And I think rather than go into those two particular stories, because they are what they are, and it was all about Microsoft trying to buy their way back into competition. But I think my general feeling on the entire FTC thing was just that it didn't shine a nice light on anybody, because all it did was make PlayStation look bad for trying to block things, even though they're really doing the same thing that Xbox and Microsoft are doing. And Microsoft didn't come off great because they literally said in emails, we're going to buy Sony out of this business, literally by saying they're going to buy up all the devs and stuff like that. So it's like, well, it doesn't really shine anybody in a great light. And I think the only great thing that will come out of those two big giants buying up all these studios is that over the next couple of decades, new studios with new ideas and there's that fly. New studios with fresh ideas and really, things that I think will be lost in the ether of big studios will get more exciting things falling out. Because I think, I don't know, like with Xbox, I'm always a little bit concerned because if you think about all the studios that Xbox has taken, all the IPs, let's talk about the IPs they've taken over, or one of them anyway. If Microsoft have always had the most money in this entire time that we've had Xbox and PlayStation, right? So why have they not got the market share? Why are they not winning? And it doesn't come down to hardware, it comes down to games, always. And that's why they're not winning. Because they don't seem to be capable of nailing AAA titles to the standard and caliber that PlayStation seem to be able to do it. And obviously buying some of those studios that they have, that's kind of going to fix some portion of that. I mean, your massive Bethesda, ZeniMax Bethesda buyout, their games are going to be quality, obviously. So those studios are now on board. But my concern is, like, what happens in the years to come? Like, we remember what happened to Lionhead Studios, who made the Fable games. For some bizarre reason, somebody decided they wanted to make an MMO, Fable, and it didn't even get launched. It fell on its arse, and they shut the studio down. It's like, well, if that's what you can expect in support from Microsoft, like, why would you want to be part of Microsoft's... And I'm not saying that PlayStation haven't shut studios down, because I'm sure they have, but it just doesn't fill me with any kind of confidence that even if Microsoft buy these companies over, that anything major is going to happen so far as the games are better are concerned. Because they don't seem to get that heavily... Looking from the outside in, they don't seem to get that heavily involved with what the decisions are for those games. And even when they try and set studios up, that doesn't seem to work either. Like, this setup, the coalition's kind of worked, but it's still nowhere near... It's still not making Gears games that were anywhere near as good as the original 3 Gears of War games, or 4 if you count the other one that's name I'm not going to remember. But the Halo franchise pretty much fell on its arse the minute they took that over with 343 Industries, because they just didn't... The first one they released was all right. It was a good game, It wasn't up to the caliber of the Bungie ones, but it was a good game, and it was a bloody good looking game as well for the tail end of the 360. But that's the only half decent Halo game they made. Everything they made after that just didn't hit home run at all, right? So there's their biggest franchise, and they couldn't nail it with their own studio. So, and then you've got I realised that what was the one that just came out? That was the vampire one. That'll come back to me. But that came out, and it was a mess. Like, it wasn't a great concept. It wasn't anything people were interested in playing. It was boring. It was repetitive. And I understand that was already well in development before Microsoft took them over. So it's hard to blame Microsoft for it. But I don't know. I'm just not like, we've gone through a massive amount of time now, decades of Microsoft having more money than PlayStation will ever have, and yet they still are coming in third out of the three console manufacturers. So why? I mean, I actually ask myself, why would you want, for all the Xbox people that are really wanting this deal to go through, do you really though? I understand that you want to try and get if you're a massive Xbox fan and you want to get one over on Sony, I understand that. But why? I mean, if you actually sit and think about it sensibly, why would you want Microsoft to take over any massive studio? Because what in their history tells you that it's going to make it better than it was? Nothing. Unless so, let me know in the comments below if you can tell me of studios that have got better under Microsoft than they were before. Tell me, because if you look at the studios under Sony's guidance, they absolutely have gone on to do better and better games without any shadow of a doubt. They've got better and better. So I mean, well, the Perfect Dark studio, that's in development chaos. Like, I think all the people that started that so-called quadruple A game that they were going to make there, I think most of them have left and they've started all over again. I think, is it Crystal Dynamics, I want to say, that they've brought in to try and help, and they've basically gone back to scratch with it. Even, I think it's been 2 years in the works now, or whatever it is. So that in itself tells you that there's something not right about how Microsoft understand how these concepts and ideas and everything have to go through the development process. For me, it's either they don't understand or they're not getting involved enough. But I don't understand what's going on at Microsoft, but they should be absolutely capable of pummeling out AAA, super AAA titles that are just awesome. But over the last 3 decades, they just don't seem to be able to do it. They seem to be able to do it if they're paying other studios to make the games. Like, what do we have on launch day with the Xbox One? I mean, Rise Son of Rome, okay, I think it was like 8 out of 10s or something. But I loved that game. I thought it was a superb looking game. It was fun to play. It was like Gears of War, but Roman, You had the Dead Rising franchise, which is still, I think, only on I think some of it's on PlayStation now, but I think the later ones might still only be on Xbox. But certainly Dead Rising 3 was a launch title for the Xbox One, and Dead Rising 4, I think. But that was not an Xbox studio. It was a studio they paid money to bring them that game. We talked last week about, or a couple of weeks ago, about the studio that they're paying, what was it, $50 million or whatever to make a new AAA title for Xbox specifically. And those, when they do those and they let a good studio do what it does, seems to pay off. But when it comes to them actually being in control of anything, it just seems to be an absolute chaos to me. I mean, I just don't understand it. It's utterly bizarre with that amount of money that you can't get people to do something that is so structured and well thought through, with great story, with great gameplay. I mean, it's a mystery to me as to how they cannot do what PlayStation have done, even though they've got all of this extra, they've got a bottomless pit of money, and they have done for the entire time they've been in the console market. I mean, yeah, I'm not forgetting the fact that the original Xbox and the 360 were super successful. They were. But even if you look back on the titles that made those successful, they weren't made by Xbox. They were made by Bungie and Epic Games. They were made by other studios. And they seem to be super successful at that sort of thing, like paying a company to make them great games. But when it comes to actually running their own studios, they just don't seem to be able to pull it off with any success whatsoever. Well, any great success. I don't want to say that all the games are shit, but you're talking like the games that they Forza's probably a great example of an exception to the rule, right? So they've got a studio there without any shadow of a doubt. So I guess that's one that we can pluck out. But that's a game franchise I'm not really interested in. And there's probably some more. If you go, let me know in the comments below if you want to mention studios that are Microsoft studios, and I'm forgetting who they are. But there are studios, obviously, that they've got. But I just don't feel like they absolutely should have way more AAA franchises that are smashing home runs from their home studios, even before they bought off these people. But they just haven't done. So every bit of success that they seem to have had with massive home titles seems to have been from buying those or paying other studios to do it, which is fine. But I don't understand why they just didn't continue to do that rather than fork out, blah billions amount of dollars to buy over Bethesda or buy over whoever. But as we heard from the FTC trial, it seems to be that they panicked. They panic bought Bethesda because they were under the impression that PlayStation were going to make a deal that would have seen Starfield only being on PlayStation for 2 years. And they said, well, we can't have that. Like they've already got too much stuff exclusive. They've already got all the Final Fantasies. They've already got the all the other stuff. We haven't got it. So they went out and they bought Bethesda. And that got rid of that problem. And then they thought, well, we'll do the same with Activision Blizzard and that'll get rid of any problems there. And I think it feels to me like Sony buying Bungie was almost a knee-jerk reaction to what they'd done with Bethesda, because it makes no sense to me that Bungie said that they would sell out to PlayStation. Like, why? You're already super successful. You've already got loads of money. You've already got money to make your next game that you want to make. So still, and part of the deal was that they are still allowed to make games for any platform. They're not just making games for PlayStation. So I don't understand why, if that's what you're going to be doing anyway, why you would be part of PlayStation. Unless the people that own Bungie decided that they're getting to a point where maybe they want to leave the company at some point and they want to leave it in safe hands and all that sort of stuff. That's fair enough, I suppose. But it still doesn't make much sense to me at the moment, in this moment in time, as to why they would do that, why they would sell out. I've just inadvertently pulled my... I like to just turn up the little cuffs here, people. I just inadvertently pulled it down. So there you are. I think, for me, I don't know how things are going to... I don't think anything will change from what's happened with the FTC thing. I still think this deal is going to go through eventually. Don't know what's going to happen with the UK. I think they might just end up pulling out of the UK, and then the UK will cave in, because it's like, why should we all suffer because they've decided they're the one place in the world that isn't going to let it go through. But it's going to be really interesting. I mean, they said this week, and I apologise if I've missed this piece of news, but there was rumour that this judge was going to make a decision this Wednesday, but I haven't seen any news to that effect. But I haven't been paying a huge amount of attention. I would have expected it to be a lot more visible if it had been made. Let me know in the comments below if that decision has been made. But whatever that decision is that this judge says, like, no, it's fine, they can go and buy Activision Blizzard. But that judge was basically saying, like, I don't understand why we're here, because you guys are doing exactly what they're doing. So why is it okay for you and not for them? Was basically what he was saying. So I don't see why it would be blocked. But for the whole industry, it's like, if you're going to block that, then it's almost like saying, well, any big company can't take over another big company then. Like, how does that work? I mean, they do block it from time to time, even in the major, like, mobile phone companies, telephone companies, all that sort of stuff. But in general terms, they'll only do it if they feel like there is a genuine, it will leave the customer with a genuine lack of choice, is usually when they do it. But that isn't the case here, because you've still got two massive choices to go for. Well, three, if you've got Nintendo as well. So I don't see... I'd understand if they were saying Xbox buying over PlayStation or something, or vice versa, but not that way around. But anyway, there you are. I mean, let me know in the comments below what you thought of any of that FTC stuff. But I thought it was super fascinating. I mean, a lot of the comments that were coming out, from Phil Spencer and everybody. I mean, it's really like when we hear them on podcasts and stuff, you get these really friendly, nice answers and everything. But when you actually hear what they're saying in emails and stuff, you really get to see Big Phil as the businessman rather than just the guy that's sort of saying stuff in a nice way to us, and what the honest answers are, because they can't lie in a courtroom. So when they get asked the questions that reporters might have asked them, they get a far more honest answer out of it. But I mean, it was fascinating more than anything else. And listen, I'm not saying that one side is right and one side is wrong. I do have concerns about the way Microsoft are running their studios, without any shadow of a doubt. But outside of a couple of exceptions, but hopefully that's all going to change. But I mean, we've had decades of them having loads of money and time to have studios that make games as good as Sony, but they just haven't done it. So we'll see what comes of it, people. We'll see what comes of it. But it was super fascinating listening to it all. It really was. Blimey, I've talked for another 50 minutes, people. Can you believe it? My therapy session is almost over once again. Ooh, flagons up to you, people. Good grief. Well, there you are. That is it. It's all I have for you, people. If I talk any longer, I will quite literally be rambling on about nothing at all. I know how much you hate that. So there you are. Once again, as I've said about 15 times through this video, I am sure, let me know in the comments below about any of the subject matter I've been talking about, or indeed anything at all to do with gaming. And let me know if you feel the same way about I am feeling about Diablo 4 and struggling to kind of get hooked into it. But I feel like I'm the only one. No one else has said about this problem. So quite clearly I might stand on my own on that one. But let me know about any of it in the comments below, people. It has been an honour and a privilege serving for you once again in this vlog of mine. And I shall catch you all in the next one, folks. Take it easy. Bye.